The Drachnid warships emerged from hyperspace like obsidian daggers cutting through silk. Their arrival in the Tau Ceti system marked humanity's first contact with alien life, and nearly our last. The colony of New Eden, home to 8 million souls, had no warning, no time to prepare, no chance to evacuate. Commander Elena Santos watched from the bridge of the UES Vigilant as the alien fleet descended upon the colony. Her ship, a mere patrol vessel, was all that stood between the invaders and millions of civilians. The massive vessels dwarfed her ship, their hull designs reminiscent of prehistoric sea creatures, all sharp angles and predatory grace. Multiple energy signatures detected, Commander. They're powering up weapons, her tactical officer reported, voice steady despite the circumstances. Elena's hands gripped the command chair. First contact protocols demanded peaceful approaches, attempts at communication. But the aliens had made their intentions clear the moment they positioned themselves in attack formation above New Eden's largest population center. Open all frequencies, she ordered. This is Commander Elena Santos of the United Earth Ship Vigilant. You have entered United Earth territory. We request immediate. The first blast cut through space like lightning, missing the Vigilant by meters. The second didn't miss. As her ship's hull screamed under the assault, Elena made the call that would echo through human history. This is Commander Santos to all Earth forces. We are under attack by unknown alien vessels. I repeat, this is not a drill. Humanity is at war. The Battle of New Eden lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 8 million colonists were dead, and humanity had learned its first brutal lesson about interstellar warfare. The Drachnids, as we would later know them, had expected us to fall quickly. They saw our relatively young spacefaring civilization and assumed we would be easy prey. In the following months, they pushed deeper into human space. Our defense fleet, built for peacetime patrol and exploration, crumbled before their advanced weapons. Colony after colony fell. Earth's military commanders watched in horror as the casualty reports piled up. 20 million dead at Alpha Centauri, 35 million at Proximub. The outer colonies were being systematically erased from existence. But in their victories, the Drachnids made 3 critical mistakes. First, they assumed our technology level matched our apparent spacefaring age. They didn't know that humanity had been preparing for this moment since we first looked up at the stars and wondered if we were alone. Hidden research stations across the solar system had been developing weapons and defenses for centuries, waiting for the day we might need them. Second, they thought our scattered colonies represented the bulk of human civilization. They didn't realize that Earth, our homeworld, housed over 15 billion souls and industrial capacity that would make their empire's production look primitive by comparison. But their final and most fatal mistake was assuming that humanity, when pushed to the brink of extinction, would simply accept its fate. At the United Earth Defense Command in Geneva, Admiral James Chen stood before the Emergency Council. The holographic displays showed the steady advance of Drachnid forces, their fleet now less than 2 months from reaching the Sol system. We've lost contact with the Epsilon Eridani colony, he reported, his voice grave. That makes 17 colonies in total. But in doing so, the enemy has given us something invaluable: data. Every battle, every loss, has taught us about their capabilities, their tactics, their weaknesses. A council member leaned forward. What good is that knowledge if we can't match their firepower? Admiral Chen's expression shifted, a ghost of a smile playing at his lips. Who said we can't match it? The Genesis program is ready. The room fell silent. The Genesis program, Earth's best-kept secret. For 50 years, deep within the asteroid belt, humanity had been building something that would change the course of the war. How many ships? Another council member asked. 3 for now. But they're unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen. Chen activated a new hologram, showing a vessel that made the council members gasp. It was massive, 15 kilometers from bow to stern. Not just a warship, but a mobile fortress factory capable of producing its own support craft and rearming in deep space. The UES Prometheus, UES Atlas, and UES Titan are ready for deployment, Chen continued. And the Drachnids have no idea they exist. They think they've seen the extent of human military capability. They're about to learn otherwise. The Council's approval was unanimous. As Chen left the chamber, his aide fell into step beside him. "Sir, even with the Genesis ships, we're still outnumbered nearly 10 to 1. Chen nodded. "True, but the Drachnids made a fundamental error in their calculations. They looked at our colony ships, our patrol vessels, our civilian fleet, and thought they'd seen everything humanity could bring to bear." He paused at a window, looking up at the night sky, where, invisible to the naked eye, humanity's salvation waited. They thought they were hunting prey. They didn't realize they were waking a giant. Lieutenant Sarah Chen had never seen anything like the UES Prometheus up close. Standing at the observation deck of the series staging facility, she watched as the massive vessel's engines came to life for the first time, its hull gleaming under the distant sun. At 15 kilometers long, it didn't just dwarf other human ships. It made them look like toys. "Beautiful, isn't she?" Admiral Chen approached, standing beside his daughter. 50 years of human ingenuity, all leading to this moment. Sarah nodded, unable to take her eyes off the vessel. "The Drachnids won't know what hit them." "That's the idea." The Admiral's expression hardened. "You've been assigned as tactical officer on the Prometheus. Captain Rivera requested you specifically." The Genesis ships weren't just large. They represented a fundamental shift in space warfare. Each vessel housed its own manufacturing facilities, capable of producing fighters and support craft from raw materials harvested in space. Their power cores, utilizing controlled quantum singularities, generated more energy than entire Drachnid battle groups. But their true advantage lay in their artificial intelligence systems. Unlike the rigid, predictable combat computers of the Drachnids, the Genesis ships' AIs could learn and adapt in real time, coordinating thousands of automated defense systems and drone fighters simultaneously. The first test of these capabilities came sooner than expected. As the Genesis fleet prepared for its maiden voyage, long-range sensors detected a massive Drachnid force approaching the Ta Ceti system, the site of their first attack on humanity. "They're returning to consolidate their gains," Captain Rivera explained during the mission briefing. "Intelligence suggests they're converting New Eden into a forward operating base. We're not going to let that happen." The plan was audacious. While the Drachnids were occupied with their construction efforts, the 3 Genesis ships would emerge from hyperspace at different points around the system, cutting off their escape routes and forcing them into a battle of attrition, a type of combat that favored the Genesis ship's self-sustaining capabilities. As the Prometheus prepared for its first jump, Sarah took her position at the tactical station. The bridge was unlike anything in the regular fleet, more like a strategic command center than a traditional starship bridge. Holographic displays showed real-time data from millions of sensors, while AI subsystems predicted enemy movements and suggested optimal responses. "All hands, battle stations." Rivera's voice was calm but carried an edge of anticipation. "This is what we've trained for. Today we show the Drachnids why humanity should never be underestimated." The hyperspace jump was precisely calculated. The Prometheus emerged exactly where planned, its massive form casting a shadow over the Drachnid construction fleet. For a moment, there was silence as the alien vessels seemed to freeze in confusion. "Enemy vessels are powering up weapons," Sarah reported, watching as red indicators bloomed across her tactical display. "They're launching fighters." Rivera smiled. "Show them what we can do, Lieutenant. All batteries, fire at will." The Prometheus's first volley rewrote the rules of space combat. Thousands of automated defense turrets engaged simultaneously, guided by predictive AI that anticipated enemy evasive maneuvers. Drachnid fighters, accustomed to overwhelming human ships with superior numbers, found themselves against an opponent that could match them ship for ship, because it was building new drones even as the battle raged. On the other side of the system, the Atlas and Titan emerged from hyperspace, their own weapons already blazing. The Drachnid fleet, caught in a carefully planned crossfire, began to break formation. "They're trying to regroup," Sarah called out, watching the enemy movements. "Standard Drachnid doctrine. They're forming defensive clusters." "Perfect." Rivera nodded to his communications officer. "Signal the Atlas and Titan. Execute Phase 2. The Genesis ship's secret weapon activated. Quantum entanglement disruption fields. The Drachnid ships, unable to maintain their advanced shield harmonics, suddenly found their defenses drastically weakened. Multiple direct hits confirmed, Sarah reported, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. Enemy vessels are showing critical damage. Their formation is breaking down completely. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, the Drachnid fleet, nearly 100 ships strong, had been reduced to floating debris. The Genesis ships, their automated repair systems already at work, had suffered only minor damage. As the last enemy vessel went dark, a cheer went up across the Prometheus's bridge, but Rivera raised his hand for silence. "Send the message," he ordered. "The one we prepared." Across all frequencies in every language humanity had decoded from Drachnid communications, a simple message was broadcast. "You attacked us believing we were weak. You murdered our people thinking we would submit. This is humanity's response. We are coming." In the aftermath, as the Genesis ships began the process of reclaiming New Eden, Sarah found her father on the observation deck. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" she asked. Admiral Chen nodded. "The Drachnids thought they knew what humanity was capable of. Now they'll learn what happens when humanity stops holding back." As if to emphasize his words, the Prometheus's manufacturing bays opened, releasing a swarm of newly constructed fighter drones. Above the reclaimed colony of New Eden, humanity's industrial might was awakening. The sleeping giant wasn't just awake, it was ready for war. 6 months after the Battle of New Eden, the war had entered a new phase. The Drachnids, reeling from their first major defeat, had pulled back their forward fleets to fortify their core systems. Their initial strategy of swift conquest had been replaced by a defensive posture that revealed something unprecedented in their species' history: fear. Captain Rivera stood before the holographic tactical display aboard the Prometheus, studying the complex web of supply lines and fortifications that made up the Drachnid defensive network. Beside him, Lieutenant Chen had spent weeks analyzing enemy patterns, looking for weaknesses. "They're adapting," Sarah noted, highlighting a series of enemy positions. "Their shield frequencies are constantly shifting now. They've modified their formations to minimize the effect of our disruption fields." Rivera nodded. "They're learning. But so are we." The Genesis ships had been busy. Their manufacturing bays had been working continuously, producing not just replacement drones, but entirely new varieties of combat craft. Each design was refined based on battle data, evolving to counter Drachnid tactics. But humanity's greatest advantage wasn't in hardware, it was in thinking differently. The Drachnids fought like an empire that had never known defeat. Their tactics were refined over centuries of victory, but they were predictable. Humanity, in contrast, fought like survivors. Every defeat taught us. Every setback made us stronger. The Battle of Proxima Centauri would prove this difference decisive. The Drachnids had converted the captured human colony into a major military hub, believing its position made it impossible to attack directly. They were right, which is why humanity didn't attack directly at all. "Begin Phase 1, Rivera ordered, and the Prometheus activated its newest weapon system. Quantum sensors across Drachnid space detected a massive human fleet approaching Proxima Centauri. The enemy responded exactly as predicted, redirecting forces to meet the threat. But there was no fleet, only thousands of advanced holographic projectors, each generating signatures identical to Genesis-class warships. While the Drachnids scrambled to respond to the Phantom fleet, the real attack came from below. "Launch the Leviathans," Sarah commanded. From the Prometheus's massive manufacturing bays emerged something new. Massive autonomous submarines designed to operate in the liquid methane oceans of Proxima b. For 3 months, they had been secretly deployed, hiding beneath the frozen surface of the planet's dark side. As the Drachnid fleet moved to engage the holographic ships, the Leviathan struck. Rising from the methane seas, they launched specialized missiles designed to operate in the planet's unique atmosphere. The Drachnid base, its defenses oriented toward space, was caught completely unprepared. Multiple direct hits confirmed, Sarah reported, watching as explosions bloomed across the surface. Their ground-based shield generators are offline, moving to Phase 3. The true genius of the plan revealed itself. As the Drachnid fleet realized they'd been deceived and turned to return, they found themselves caught in a gravitational trap. Hidden gravitational pulse generators, planted by the Leviathans weeks earlier, activated simultaneously. The entire Drachnid fleet, their engines struggling against the artificial gravity wells, was held in place. That's when the Genesis ships emerged from hyperspace, the real ones this time. "All batteries, open fire," Rivera ordered. "Let's show them why you don't turn your back on Earth." The battle that followed was less a fight and more a systematic dismantling. Unable to maneuver effectively, the Drachnid ships were picked apart by precision fire from the Genesis vessels. Their advanced shields, calibrated for conventional weapons, proved ineffective against the hybrid quantum gravitational weapons humanity had developed. As the last Drachnid dreadnought went dark, Sarah received a surprising signal. "Captain, we're detecting a transmission from the surface. It's coming from the human resistance." The colony hadn't been completely conquered after all. A group of survivors, hidden in the deeper methane caves, had maintained a guerrilla resistance against the Drachnid occupation. Now they emerge, ready to reclaim their home. Hours later, as recovery operations began, Sarah found Rivera in his ready room, studying reports from other fronts. "The Drachnids are pulling back across all sectors," he noted. "This victory, it's changed everything. They never expected us to turn their own gravity manipulation technology against them. Never imagined we'd fight from beneath frozen oceans." Sarah nodded. "They thought space warfare had rules. Conventions, we showed them otherwise." "That's humanity's greatest strength," Rivera replied. "When our backs are against the wall, we don't just break the rules, we rewrite them completely." The Battle of Proxima Centauri marked more than just a tactical victory. It represented a fundamental shift in the war. The Drachnids had lost their aura of invincibility. Their empire, built on millennia of unchallenged dominance, had been outsmarted by a species they'd dismissed as primitive. As the Genesis ships prepared to press their advantage, a new message was intercepted from Drachnid High Command. "The humans are not what we thought. They do not fight like any species we have encountered. They do not break. They do not follow conventions. They evolve." In the observation deck of the Prometheus, Sarah watched as teams of engineers swarmed over captured Drachnid vessels, already learning, adapting, improving. Humanity wasn't just winning battles now. We were revolutionizing warfare itself. The tide hadn't just turned. It had become a tsunami. The orbital shipyards above Mars told the story of humanity's resolve. Where once there had been nothing but vacuum, now massive construction facilities stretched for hundreds of kilometers, their frames illuminated by the constant flash of assembly robots and plasma welders. Admiral Sarah Chen, promoted after her crucial role in the Proxima Centauri victory, stood aboard the observation deck of the Mars Command Center, watching as another Genesis-class vessel took shape. In the years since the war began, humanity had transformed its entire solar system into a war machine. "Production numbers for the quarter, Admiral," her aide reported, handing over a datapad. "We've exceeded all projections. The new automated assembly lines are operating at 300% of expected capacity." Sarah studied the figures with a mix of pride and amazement. When the war began, Earth had 3 Genesis ships. Now they had 15, with another 10 under construction. But it wasn't just the massive capital ships. Humanity's industrial base had been completely revolutionized. The asteroid belt had been transformed into a network of automated mining operations, feeding raw materials to the shipyards. Jupiter's moons hosted antimatter production facilities, providing fuel for the ever-growing fleet. Even Venus's harsh atmosphere was being harvested for exotic elements needed for quantum weaponry. Update from the Titan front, her tactical officer announced. The Drachnids attempted another counter-offensive in the Sirius sector. The new Helios-class destroyers performed exactly as designed. The Helios destroyers were another example of humanity's rapid technological evolution. Smaller than the Genesis ships but incorporating many of their advanced features, they could be produced in greater numbers. More importantly, they represented humanity's ability to learn from its enemies. "Show me," Sarah ordered. The holographic display activated, showing the recent battle. The Helios destroyers, incorporating captured Drachnid technology combined with human innovation, demonstrated their effectiveness. Their hybrid shields, based on reversed-engineered Drachnid systems, but powered by human quantum cores, proved impenetrable to enemy fire. Their weapons, combining human AI targeting with Drachnid energy principles, cut through enemy defenses like paper. 4 enemy capital ships destroyed, no casualties on our side, the tactical officer reported. The Drachnids are calling them ghost ships. They can't get a reliable lock on them. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The Drachnids had made the mistake of thinking humanity would take decades to understand their technology. They hadn't counted on the combined intellectual might of 15 billion humans, all focused on a single goal: survival. But the true game changer wasn't just in ships and weapons. It was in logistics. "Show me the supply network," Sarah commanded. The holographic display shifted, revealing a complex web of supply lines, forward bases, and mobile repair facilities. While the Drachnids relied on fixed supply lines and established bases, humanity had created a completely mobile infrastructure. The Genesis ships weren't just warships. They were mobile industrial bases. Each one could produce its own fighters, repair its own damage, and even construct smaller support vessels. This capability had been expanded and refined. Now, entire fleets could operate indefinitely in deep space, their resources replenished by automated mining ships and mobile refineries. "Report from Earth Defense Command," her aide announced. "The quantum entanglement communication network is complete. All human forces can now coordinate in real time, regardless of distance." This was perhaps humanity's greatest achievement. While the Drachnids relied on conventional faster-than-light communications, subject to delay and interruption, humanity had created an instantaneous command and control network. Every ship, every base, every unit could share information and coordinate actions simultaneously. Sarah walked to her private office, where a special communication awaited. The holographic form of her father, Admiral James Chen, appeared. "The Council has approved Operation Thunderbolt," he announced without preamble. "You have full authorization to proceed." Sarah nodded gravely. Operation Thunderbolt was the most ambitious military campaign in human history. A coordinated strike at the heart of Drachnid space. It would involve over 30 Genesis ships, hundreds of Helios destroyers, and thousands of support vessels. "Are the new weapons ready?" she asked. The Jupiter facilities completed the final tests yesterday. The gravitational pulse cannons are even more effective than we hoped. The Drachnids won't know what hit them. Sarah turned to look out her window at the massive shipyards. Another Genesis ship was nearing completion, its hull gleaming in the Martian sunlight. Beyond it, dozens of Helios destroyers were lined up like arrows in a quiver, ready to be launched. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "the Drachnids thought they were attacking a primitive species still learning to leave its cradle. Instead, they forced us to become something else entirely." Her father's hologram nodded. "They wanted an easy conquest. They got an industrial and technological revolution instead." As if to emphasize his words, A massive flash lit up the Martian sky. Another antimatter reactor coming online, ready to power the next generation of warships. The Drachnids had started this war believing they were the masters of space warfare, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity, a species that could turn an entire solar system into a war machine that could adapt and improve faster than anyone thought possible. The weight of steel humanity had brought to bear was about to become a hammer that would reshape the galaxy. Operation Thunderbolt began not with a bang, but with silence. Throughout Drachnid space, their quantum sensors went dark. Their gravitational detection arrays failed. Their automated defense networks suddenly stopped responding. For 30 seconds, their entire empire went blind. When sight returned, humanity's full might was already upon them. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus Prime, the most advanced warship ever built by human hands. Around her, 30 Genesis-class vessels moved in perfect formation, their massive forms casting shadows across the stars. Behind them came the Helios destroyers, hundreds strong, their stealth systems making them almost invisible to the naked eye. "All ships report ready," her tactical officer announced. "Gravitational pulse cannons charged. Quantum disruption fields at maximum power." Sarah took a deep breath. This was the moment that would decide the fate of two civilizations. Send the message. Across every frequency, in the Drachnid's own language, her words echoed. "You came to our worlds as conquerors. You slaughtered our people as if we were nothing. Now face the consequences of your arrogance." The Drachnid home system was supposedly impregnable. 3 layers of automated defense platforms, energy shields powered by the combined output of 3 stars, a fleet of 10,000 warships. It wasn't enough. The first wave of human attacks didn't target ships or stations. It targeted space itself. The new gravitational pulse cannons, products of humanity's quantum engineering revolution, created localized distortions in space-time. Drachnid ships found themselves fighting not just an enemy fleet, but reality itself. Multiple breaches in their defensive line, the tactical officer reported. Their formations are breaking down. The Drachnids had expected a conventional assault. Instead, they faced weapons that turned their own technological advantages against them. Human ships, guided by AIs that could process combat data in nanoseconds, struck with impossible precision. But the true masterstroke was yet to come. "Execute Phase Omega," Sarah commanded. Deep within Drachnid space, thousands of seemingly derelict ships, casualties from previous battles, suddenly activated. Each one had been secretly converted into a carrier for microscopic quantum replicators, a technology humanity had developed by combining Drachnid matter manipulation with Earth's nanotechnology. As the replicators activated, they began disassembling Drachnid technology at the molecular level, converting enemy ships and stations into raw materials, which were then reconstructed into human drones and weapons. The Drachnid fleet watched in horror as their own destroyed vessels rose again, transformed into weapons of their enemy. "We're receiving a transmission," communications reported. "It's from the Drachnid High Command." Sarah nodded. "Put it through." The holographic form of the Drachnid Supreme Commander appeared, the first time any human had seen their leadership. The alien's crystalline carapace reflected light in complex patterns, a sign of extreme distress in their species. "You?" The commander's translator struggled to convert their complex language. "You are not what we thought." "No," Sarah replied simply. "We're not. Our archives spoke of countless species, countless civilizations. None ever did this. You turned our own dead ships against us. You bent space itself to your will." "How?" Sarah stood from her command chair. "You attacked us believing we were primitive, that our youth as a spacefaring species made us weak. But you didn't understand what humanity truly is. We are adaptable. We are innovative. And above all, we are survivors." The Drachnid commander was silent for a long moment. "What are your terms?" The peace negotiations took place aboard the Prometheus Prime. The terms were strict but not vindictive. Humanity demanded recognition of its territories, reparations for the destroyed colonies, and access to Dragnid technological archives. In return, they would not press their advantage further into Dragnid space. As the Dragnid representatives signed the peace accords, one of them asked Sarah a question that had been bothering their species. Why show mercy? You could destroy us completely now. Sarah thought of the millions who had died, of the colonies reduced to ash, but she also thought of what this war had taught humanity about itself. Because that's another thing you didn't understand about humans, she replied. We can learn from our enemies' mistakes. You showed no mercy, and it led you here. We choose a different path. In the years that followed, humanity's influence spread throughout the galaxy. The Genesis ships, no longer needed for war, were converted into exploration vessels. The quantum replicator technology that had turned the tide of war was repurposed for terraforming and colonization. But the greatest change was in how the galaxy viewed humanity. The species that had been dismissed as primitive had proven to be something else entirely, a civilization that could match the industrial might of ancient empires, master technology that had taken others millennia to develop, and do it all in the span of a single war. On the observation deck of the Prometheus Prime, now orbiting Earth, Sarah stood with her father, watching ships depart for distant stars. They'll never underestimate us again, the elder Chen observed. Sarah shook her head. No, but that's not what matters. What matters is that we didn't lose ourselves in winning this war. We proved we could fight like no one else, but we also proved we could show mercy like no one else. Below them, Earth shone like a jewel, its orbital rings now hosting ships from dozens of species, former enemies and new allies alike, all drawn to the civilization that had rewritten the rules of what was possible. Humanity had been tested in fire and emerged not just victorious, but transformed. The sleeping giant was awake, and the galaxy would never be the same.